What's up, everybody? I am Jesse, or GameOverJesse, as all of you may know me. Sorry. This is the Zelda Mailbag for the Hylians Gamescast, episode 35. Here with us, you see, really big, is Mr. Daniel, our co-host.
Hello, everybody.
Joining for the very first time is Gibbs to the bottom left. At the top right, we have returning Axel the Beast, who has his own Zelda Mailbag, the Curiosity Shop, on his channel. And then below him, you will see Hylian CC, who is also currently streaming this mailbag on her Twitch. Say hello, CC.
Hello, hello, it's me.
Yeah, we can do like the Parcher family thing, where everyone's like pointing at each other.
You should do that every mailbag or every podcast.
So
It'd be hilarious.
There's Daniel right here. There's Axel way over there. Exactly. Gibbs down here.
We could just get notes. Everyone can like post-it notes or something to remind them where.
I think it's different for everyone.
Yeah, I have to look at the stream to see which way I'm pointing is right. Because
for me, Jesse's really big in the middle.
Same. Down
here is Gibbs. Over there is Daniel, and then down that way is Axel.
Yeah, it would just be whatever the Jesse sees because it goes on the stream.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right, so like I was saying, this is the Zelda Mailbag, where you can submit your Zelda questions or Nintendo-related questions, any question, honestly, it doesn't really matter. But we call it the Zelda Mailbag because that's what makes you click on the video.
True.
Yeah, so like if we named it Pikmin Mailbag, no one would
watch it. Yeah. Also, I'd love to do a Pikmin Mailbag if you guys
Pikmin fans.
If you guys got questions.
Yes. Sometimes we get so many Zelda questions we can't go through all of them, which is why you can head over to patreon.com/GameOverJesse, where you can become a Patreon to have your question guaranteed to be on the show, just as Jacob, Michael, Elmer, Gus, Justin, Ashley, that one Pancake Key of Time 15, Monica, Casey, Link uses the Triforce, Megan, Lunarium, Robbie Morgan, Shadow to Us, Rusty, and Lovable Christy have all done, but none of them have submitted a question for this week. So I don't know what they're doing.
They're taking advantage of giving you money.
Yeah, how dare they? We are also, we have new shirts, which I am not wearing, but you will see a lot of us wearing them at E3 when we make our... the last one. And then the Pokemon videos also had it. Patreon.com/GameOverJesse, guaranteed to have your question answered and a bunch of other stuff. And if you donate at a high enough tier, you'll get sent a free shirt, but it's not really free because we use the money you send to pay for it. Anyways, our first question, people in the chat, you can post your questions. We'll go through them. After we go through some of these written questions, we'll each do 2 questions. That gives us 10 questions total. So we'll each pick a question from the mailbag, and then we'll each pick one question from the live chat. People in the comments, put your questions in the comments below, and then we'll answer them on next week's mailbag. So the 37 people watching, last time none of you were asking questions, so ask questions this time.
Ask them!
Yeah, our first question comes from Legally Squid, who says, if URA's Zelda ever released, where do you think the new dungeons would be located?
Places where the other dungeons aren't.
You know, there's a lot of room, actually. If you go into...
Well, the thing is...
There's like an area... Pretty much any area, like, of the whole Hyrule field between Gerudo Valley, like, if you follow it along to Castletown, there's a lot of empty space.
Yeah.
They could put an entrance to a new sub-area and just go from there.
If you remember, Miyamoto and Aonuma, they always say anything that was taken out of one Zelda game is reused in other Zelda games.
Yeah.
So when he was talking about Zelda URA, he said even up to Skyward Sword, they were still using things from dungeons to put in those games. So one of the things that I think might be obvious is with Twilight Princess, which gameplay-wise is sort of like a newer version of Ocarina of Time, because like you begin in the forested area, you complete the forested dungeon, you go to the fire dungeon, you go to the water dungeon, something big happens. In Ocarina of Time, you got the Master Sword. In Twilight Princess, I think Zent shows up to take something from you.
Yeah, and then you get the Master Sword.
Yeah. So it's literally, like, gameplay-wise, it's basically like a reimagining of Ocarina of Time. So with that and Twilight Princess, well, in Ocarina of Time, we know that one of the things was it was supposed to have a light dungeon where you got the light medallion, but Rauru just gives it to you in the game. So I think in the Temple of Time in Twilight Princess, where you go up the stairs and go through the window, and it takes you to a dungeon, I think that may have been the first dungeon that you go to in Ura's Zelda, where you pull out the Master Sword, and you're already in the Temple of Time, or maybe once like Sheik steps out of the way from the pedestal to where you can travel back and forth through time. I think it's after you beat the first dungeon. Then she mentions something like, hey, after you do this, you can go up these stairs, but they took the dungeon out. So then Rauru just gives you the medallion, and then they later reused that idea in Twilight Princess. Because we even see Navi fly through that window at the end of Ocarina of Time, which is when Ura begins. So after Navi flies through the window and the game ends, the expansion would have started up. So it would make sense for Link to be like, why did Navi fly through that window? I'm gonna go through that window. So,
it adds up, honestly. Like you said, there's a lot of things that carried forward to other games that were cut out, and that is one of the areas in Twilight Princess that most closely relates to Ocarina of Time or resemble it. So.
Alright, so we can each name an area. I named the Spirit Temple. I think an obvious one that I'm going to take away from you guys because it's too obvious. There was a rumored Sky Temple. So saying there's a dungeon somewhere in the sky, which was also reused in Twilight Princess. Taking that away from everyone. But you have to keep in mind there were other, like, it wasn't just adding dungeons. There were supposed to be like new villages, new areas to explore as well. So, like, it could be an area that none of us would even know existed. So, Axel, you next.
I feel...
And I'm waiting for someone to say the other obvious one.
I don't know too much about Ura Zelda, unfortunately. I don't know if I'm going to be able to give like a correct answer here. I know that there was originally going to be a wind temple, but they changed it in the forest one. I feel like they might, like you were saying, they reuse ideas. So if Ura Zelda had happened, they might have actually used that, considering they had the wind dungeon assets in the Shadow Temple and Ganon's Castle of it with the fans and whatnot. So I feel like they might have figured out another way to like maybe have you go way deeper into the woods, like way out there, like kind of at the edge of the world kind of vibe, like you kind of get in the haunted wasteland. Then maybe they would have put like a wind temple out there or something.
And also, Twilight Princess, the forest temple, had a lot of wind
You're
stuff.
right, yeah.
Like,
and
you literally...
Wind Waker as well. The Forbidden Woods in Wind Waker, you get the Deku Leaf. There's a lot of wind-based.
You had to,
because you gotta like turn the wind propellers too, right?
And the forest medallion,
certain bridges.
like the forest medallion resembles like air or whatever, like a fan or something. Instead of having
resembles air.
Yeah, and instead of having
like
the obvious thing,
motifs in Wind Waker have like that same kind of swirl.
Yeah,
design.
but like it's a forest medallion, so instead of having the obvious leaf on the medallion, it's resembling wind, which is a big thing. Cece, where do you think the dungeon would be? Or a dungeon? And what type of dungeon do you think it would have been?
Okay, when this question started, I wanted to ask, but I didn't want to interrupt. What is Ura Zelda?
It was a planned expansion. Okay, so do you know the Nintendo 64 disk drive?
Yes.
Okay, so the Nintendo 64 had an attachment that failed. It released in Japan, but it didn't sell well, so they stopped all projects for it, but they released a few, and they had announced even more. One of the expansions they had was for Ocarina of Time. You would beat the game, and then like the next year or whenever they would release the expansion, it would basically be DLC, to where you can buy the disc, put in the cartridge, shove in the expansion disc, and suddenly you would have an entirely new game added onto it, or like half of a new game added onto it, where there's new areas, new items, new tunics, new weapons, new dungeons.
You've done videos on that before, right?
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot. It's a very popular topic.
I recall vaguely watching it on some of your...
Yeah, this person's asking, where do you think one of those dungeons would be?
Yeah. If anyone else watching doesn't know, Jesse also has some good videos on URA Zelda as well. If you go on the channel under the canceled games playlist, you should be able to find it.
Yeah,
there.
and we have a video with Tony from Hard for Games where we go through Nintendo, not made up fan speculation, but Nintendo's actual article on Nintendo's website from like 1996.
Yeah.
That surfaced randomly.
Yeah. About the story of Ocarina of Time before they canceled the URA expansion, where it looked like you would have, like it begins, it looks like with Link as an adult instead of you being a child and then turning into an adult. Like you begin in the woods as adult Link, and then later on you can travel back to the thing. So Cece walked away, so Gibbs...
She gone.
Yeah.
She's getting her mug.
Oh yeah,
awesome
she got her
mug.
drink. Cece will go after you, Gibbs. What do you think?
Alright, well, if you look at the Hyrule World Atlas from Ocarina of Time, which is the main map that when you go into the pause menu, the one you see once you're on the Hyrule. That one.
Yeah.
That's the one. Okay, if you look at in between Sora's Domain and Death Mountain, there's a big blank spot where it looks like there's clouds over it. I think there's supposed to be like so much more behind it. It just looks like a place. Thank you very much, Daniel.
No problem. Google.
Where like, I don't know, I have a sense of like, I have a feel like, you know, mountains or, you know, and especially because Sora's Domain is right next to it, something with ice. I don't know.
I know the ice cavern as well was like supposed to is like a dungeon that was cut down.
That
so
would
it
have
could
been
have
a
been an
dungeon.
expansion of that.
Yeah.
Which
I
Majora's
love it.
Mask had an ice dungeon that was completely out of place because it was the Goron dungeon, which is usually fire, but in
that was
Majora's
the
Mask,
problem.
it was ice.
They were like that was their conflict.
I
though.
know, but I think they took the dungeon that they made for Ocarina of Time and repurposed it in Majora's Mask, and then was like, how can we make a story that ties into this? And then they were like,
I'm actually not inclined to agree with that because I felt like the Snowhead Temple was very much designed like all of Majora's Mask dungeons, or a lot of them, where they had like a central, like a mechanism you had to worry about throughout the whole dungeon of lowering the pillar in the center.
I looked
And
at
that's not something
the...
you see in Ocarina of Time in general.
So
And
that's the
there's not
ice...
very much that it's like close to in design to the ice cavern as well, where the ice cavern was like the ice dungeon that was like really cut down and scaled back. But if you look at the design between Snowhead Temple and the ice cavern, they're just thematically they've got ice, but there's not much else that connects them. I think.
Well, I was going to say,
Sorry.
if you look at the Fire Temple, there are these platforms that you have to keep raising up or lowering down to get to the different levels. Similar to in Dodongo's Cavern, there's the pillars that rise all the way up and all the way down. And then in the Water Temple, everything is centered around like the center pillar, and you're raising the water level instead of platforms.
Right.
In the Ice Dungeon, it's like a mix of those two, to where it's like everything's centered around like the one room where, like, in Majora's Mask they make it so you have to like jump across as a rolling Goron, but there could have been like some other item that you would have used that would have been in URA, or like maybe a hook shot to get across, or who knows what kind of item they could have added that they ended up not having. So that's
No.
Yeah.
that's the way that I was thinking of it. Twilight Princess was really cool because we ended up getting both the ice dungeon and the water dungeon. So, but yeah, like that area would have been really cool to see some sort of dungeon or a village there. Gibbs, what about you, Axel? Did you already get one?
Yeah, I gave mine.
Sorry,
What are you
Daniel.
talking about?
Daniel.
All right. I'm going to refer back to the Hyrule Atlas here. So you'll see there's like an area right here in Hyrule Field.
Oh,
the other
yeah.
side
I used
of
to think
Hyrule
that was
Castle
like
Town.
very obscure.
There's
as
not
well.
there's not very much there. Honestly, there's a great amount of detail put into that area, and it leads to nowhere. It's like just a dead end. There's like a little river, you can cross it, there's some trees and shrubs and whatever, but there's nothing worthwhile there.
Right.
But you can go, you can play through the whole game
Isn't
and never
there
go
even
to that
one
area.
of the P-hats there?
No, but I think there's a big toe in that area, but I think that's it.
Alright.
But
I think I remember one of those spinning things there.
okay, I might be misremembering. It's been a while, but you
I
can play
believe-
the whole game on an average run, and your average person might never go there.
I believe as a child there is a P-hat.
Okay, oh, that's true. Because they're not all there when you're a Link, so it might be that it's there as a child and gone when you're adult Link. But
Yeah, and
either way,
usually there are the big pose are
Mhm.
in like important areas.
yeah,
So like one in front of the Gerudo entrance, one in front of Lake Hylia, one
near
Hyrule Castle,
Ranch.
and yeah. So,
yeah, exactly. So it's this kind of weird out of place area that feels like there should have been more there, or there should have been an entrance to somewhere else there, like another sub area.
yeah.
But there's
Like,
nothing
you,
there.
You put in the URA expansion, and then it's like, oh, there's suddenly
And
a,
then suddenly
a
just like
path
a
here.
path or a bombable wall that opens a path or something, you know, and
Yeah.
yeah, that would be really cool. Like, because then you get more. Hyrule Field is really big in that game, especially at the time. It was like, it's so big when you're like playing it the first time. Yeah. So it like to get more use out of that space there would be really good, because there's a lot of space in Hyrule Field that's not really used for anything. So that
Yeah.
being one of them.
All right, going back to you, CC, because you had to go get your drink, so we just went on to Gibbs.
Yes.
So, what is an area that you think would have had a dungeon, or an area that would have had like a new village added in? Do you need Daniel to hold up the map again?
Should I get the? I was just gonna say, should I get the, the map?
Hold up the map, Daniel.
I'm trying to think, because
Does it?
I mean,
kind of
all the
zoomed
places
in.
you guys mentioned are things that like never even crossed my mind.
Oh.
Like when I think of Hyrule, there I just think of all the places that are already have a dungeon, like
Yeah.
Goron, Kokiri.
Yeah.
like
we're
Hylia,
we're
Gerudo.
filling in the gaps. Here,
Yeah,
That
I didn't-
clouded off area by
Yeah.
Zora's
There's
Domain.
a-
I mean, there's another cloud on the left. Can that be opened up?
Yeah.
This is a-
Not that it
over-
can't, I know it can't be, but further up, like there's a circle,
between
a circular cloud.
between Hyrule Castle and Gerudo. Yeah.
It froze for a minute. Yeah, that circular cloud-looking thing. Oh, you passed it. Where'd it go?
Oh, wait.
Other
No,
way.
other side.
Other way.
Other way?
Next
I
to
can't see it,
Gerudo.
it's in reverse of
Next to Gerudo.
right over. It zoomed all the way out. There.
Yeah, that thing. It'd been cool to climb up those ridges.
Yeah. And if you look,
That's where the waterfall is, right? And
Yeah. so the
Yeah.
river like goes between there. So there's
Yeah,
a gap
yeah.
missing.
See, the area I was talking about is like right next to there. This
yeah,
area.
Yeah, I remember
could
that
lead
area you were
somewhere
talking-
in there.
that'd be cool too.
Yeah. All right. Cece, do you want to pick our next question?
Yeah, are we going in? We're not going in order, right?
No.
Yeah, just
Of course
pick
not.
one.
Okay. Going to drag you into our planet Hyrule debate on the theory thread. Is Hyrule an entire world, or is it a kingdom continent?
It's
I think
a
it's
political kingdom, I believe. Like it's always referred to as the Kingdom of Hyrule.
Yeah.
There's a lot of politics around it. I think in Twilight Princess, they refer to Ordon being outside of Hyrule. So it's
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
not the planet.
Yeah, I wouldn't think the planet. I remember that though, and I guess that kind of stuck out to me because I mean, some of you might know I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know that like Middle Earth is just a very small part of the big world,
Yeah, like one
universe.
continent or something, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like it'd be cool to. That's why that came to my mind
because it's Middle Earth, not whole Earth.
Whole Earth. Entire Earth.
Suddenly the name makes sense.
When I was a kid and I first started like reading my Lord of the Rings, when the name Middle Earth came out, or when I first read it, my thought was that there's the planet Earth, and then like it's hollow inside.
Middle of it.
And inside is Middle Earth.
You know what? I shouldn't laugh at you because I think when I was really like little and I first heard about it, I think that was my thoughts too.
Okay.
Little Daniel asking the real question.
Little, like the Earth is hollow.
Yeah.
What's at the planet's core? it's
Middle Earth.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. That's honestly
So-
the correct answer there.
In the
So
chat,
if
Champion of
Hyrule's just-
Morrowind says Hyrule is a kingdom. That's a fact. Ordania, Holodrum, and Koholint are outside of its borders. I'm gonna put Termina on that list as well.
See.
And
And whatever
they're massive
nation
as
Ordona
well.
is part of.
Ordon.
Actually,
First
on
one.
that note, they say that Ordon is not part of Hyrule proper. I get the sense that Ordon is owned by Hyrule. It's not technically within its borders,
Like
but it's a
Puerto
territory.
Rico.
It's like
in
the
America?
Puerto Rico of Hyrule.
Yeah,
That
but
makes sense.
it might not even be in an official terms. It might simply be a territory outside of the border, but which has close relations with Hyrule. That's what
That
I got
makes
out of it.
sense. I mean, because they had to carry they were the Smiths.
Yeah. The
Link had to take the
blacksmith.
sword to him, right, or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they
Sense
had
is
to
like-
have.
Yeah.
Some serious
Some
peace,
relation.
Yeah, so it's like-
political relations about to go down there, and then he
So-
doesn't show up.
No. So the Twilight Realm.
Political relation.
Oh, there's also a conversation you can overhear as Wolf Link
Yeah,
in
that's what I was
Twilight
talking
Princess.
about.
Yeah, in Telma's bar, right?
Yeah.
And they are saying like, oh, she is like, oh, I didn't know there were any good men left in Hyrule. And nerdy guy whose name I can't remember is like,
Shad.
actually, Shad. Yeah, he's like, Shad's like, yeah, actually, Link is not from Hyrule. He is from
Also-
Ordania.
Screw you.
Sorry, we're all great minds think alike.
Yeah.
No,
So-
I'm saying Shad would be like, and also screw you.
Oh yeah, he's like. By the way, I'm right here. So thanks for that.
Yeah. So I think it's like Ordon, like the Ordon people or the Ordonian people. Whenever Zant and Ganondorf tried taking over Hyrule, they're just like, then why are you coming
just-
here?
They're just
Like,
ordinary people, you know.
yeah, it's like you're taking over Hyrule. Why are you here in this place?
So since Hyrule's just a kingdom, being Hylian, would that be considered a race or ethnicity?
Well, like I'm Canadian.
yeah, but you're part of the human race, not
That's
the
why he
Hylian
looks
race.
so
You get
weird.
me?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it is like a race.
Yeah,
like
she's
the human
right.
Race.
Yeah,
yeah.
the Hylian race.
Hylians all the
So people,
It's
but I mean,
both.
what about
It's both.
the
like
race?
if
Okay.
someone's Jewish, they could just be from the country, or they could be the religion.
the religion?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's also like in there's talks about like the Hylian bloodline specifically, so they're like a humanoid race, but they're like a specific
Yeah. In
canonically.
Twilight
I think
Princess is the game that illuminated that actually quite a bit because actually previously everyone's a Hylian and then sometimes they're Gerudo, I guess. But in Twilight Princess, a Goron actually calls you a human, and the Ordonians do not have the pointed ears. They are not Hylians, but they are humans, and the Hylians are humans too. The Hylians are specifically the humans who descended from Hylia, as best as I can understand.
Right.
Or at
And
least
in the
from
Link to the
Skyward.
Past as well. This goes all the way back there.
Yeah.
There's talk about Link and Zelda are both descended from the Hylian bloodline, but that's a dying bloodline outside of the royal family, and most of the other characters are human. Well,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's like everyone from Hyrule can call themselves Hylian, like that's their nationality.
yeah. 'Cause
But
they're
then
from-
inside Hyrule,
Hyrulean.
yeah, but then,
Hyrulean, yeah.
yeah.
then you
but
have
Hyrulean
the
could
race.
be Gorons, Zoras, Hylians, because they live in Hyrule. But yeah,
So like you can
I
be a
actually
different
would-
race, but still have the nationality.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's also worth noting that there's technically no guarantee of any kind that even the Goron and Zora kingdoms are necessarily in Hyrule either. We don't know that.
but there's the whole Hyrulean civil war thing that there's listed that the king of Hyrule during the time like united everyone under the same
Okay, fair
political
enough.
banner.
Then,
So
Alright.
at least in that game, there is nothing about the other games.
All right. Next question, Gibbs. Would you like to take one?
Sure.
Mr. Gibbs, choose wisely.
Hello, Gibby.
Hello, mate.
Hello.
Hello, governor.
we doing this?
So, well,
Are you from Manchester?
Okay, from Spyro Chick 101 on YouTube. Question. We don't see the Gerudo in Twilight Princess, but we know they are allies and very close to the royal family in Breath of the Wild. When did this alliance occur with Ganondorf gone? Maybe the Gerudo were free. They weren't ruled by force or fear of Ganon.
Yeah, there is the theory that the Gerudo were partial, like part of the Gerudo were sent to the Twilight Realm, as was Ganondorf, and they
Right.
became the Sheikah. But then there's also people that think it was,
Or the
or,
Twilight.
yeah, the Twilight, and
Yeah.
people think that the Sheikah were sent there and they became Twilight. And personally, I like to think that it was just a mix of everyone who was sent there that became the Twilight. So like the Gerudo mated with the Sheikah, and eventually.
And I think also there's probably like a whole, as far as like people talk about their characteristics of that race. I think that's more like a prolonged exposure to that environment caused them to change.
Yeah,
as
and
well.
there's also an actual race in the desert from Four Swords Adventures that
is
are
it
already
Zuna?
blue.
The Zuna,
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
One question is, why did the Twilight have to descend from either of them? Couldn't they have been unrelated?
I mean, I was just saying like that's
Could have
the
been.
theory.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So because they're all like magic users, and then they like the
The
Gerudo
Gerudo
part.
aren't really.
Yeah, well, the Gerudo part could be like the reason that they immediately looked at, or Zant immediately looked at Ganondorf, could have been because he was already part Gerudo. So that's why he looked at Ganondorf as the king. And then
I
like,
like the-
Pretty sure he was just a giant glowing head in the sky offering him power, and he's just like, "Whoa, yes, sir." I ain't gonna argue with the giant head.
Yeah, that's a good
that
point.
is a weird scene.
Giant flaming magic head.
It's like my favorite scene in all of.
All right.
I like the little reference in Breath of the Wild that Urbosa makes or something.
Oh yeah, where she mentions Ganondorf being.
She mentions
Gerudo.
Ganondorf being the king. She was like, I can't believe, that blah 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 used to rule Gerudo. I can't wait to, for this revenge or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it makes it more personal for her.
hmm
It's hard to say exactly when that alliance would have occurred though, because we've got 10,000 years of the wilds. That's a lot of time for political changes to happen, right? So there's
Yeah.
a lot of sort of uncharted territory to go there. I mean, technically-
every civilization we know about happened within
Yeah.
the last 10,000 years. So like,
and
imagine what's happened to a civilization that was already established for thousands of years, and then going forward another 10,000.
yeah,
Like technically, I don't even think they should be in Hyrule, because like if you go back to the Egyptians when we had pyramids, and then you go forward just a few thousand years, like we went from that to having spaceships taking us to the moon, or like rockets. So it's like if you add in another 5,000 years from now, none of us were probably going to be on Earth. So like Hyrule and Breath of the Wild technically should probably be on like another planet. They should be hanging out with like Samus and Star Fox.
Yeah, but like a really slow historical progression. It's fine.
they do.
Well-
Like not a lot happens except for trains.
It's like we got motorcycles.
The one thing I believe is that because of how Ganondorf and Ganon keep coming back, That's the one reason for the slow progression of
That's a good
technology.
point.
Yeah, but they had
Actually,
10,000
also
years of peace.
in the backstory though,
there.
they had the Sheikah. They did become technologically advanced though.
Oh, they had the
The
robots
Sheikah
and stuff from
became
Skyward Sword.
really advanced, and then there was like no threats because of how advanced they were.
Yeah, and
then
also,
they reverted back to almost medieval.
What were you saying,
technology.
Axel?
Sorry,
I was just going to say, as a counterpoint to Gibbs's point, technically in history, it's actually war that has pushed technological advancement in a lot of cases. Because half the time you're like, oh, how are we going to beat these guys more efficiently?
Let's create the
How
internet.
can we kill people more efficiently?
Well, no,
Let's
actually,
discuss.
Half the time it's about saving the lives of your own soldiers. How can your soldiers more effectively?
I'm just joshing on that point, but that's another discussion outside of Zelda.
You want to have it?
All right, Axel, pick your question.
Pick my question? All right. Shadow Sage asks, why don't people who make the games just be blunt and say what it is instead of try to make it up on the spot to create future argument? I'd reveal my truths on my games. Why leave people in the damn dark? LOL.
It's a good question.
Nintendo, I just think it's a lack of foresight thing. Nintendo just didn't plan anything, and it's not like they're like intentionally being like, don't tell them where this game is in the Zelda timeline.
Yeah, they don't know.
They just like they're like, oh shoot, where?
Yeah, I can promise you, Breath of the Wild was not designed with timeline placement in mind. They're not saying, they're not being coy. They don't know or care.
Yeah, the only game I think that was a Skyward Sword, where they were like, this is the first one, you know.
Yeah, and then it's like you don't have to pick a timeline. As long as it's before Ocarina of Time, you don't have to pick the timeline because it's before all of them. But one thing... Sorry, Cece, what?
Oh, I was going to say, I do feel like story is of course, a big implement with Zelda, but like one of you guys said, I don't think they know or care. I think it's a matter of not caring, because they didn't, like you guys said, they didn't have the timeline in mind until like much later. And I think their focus, especially with Breath of the Wild, was definitely changing up, you know, a lot of gameplay mechanics, physics, all of that, and incorporating story where they could without paying much attention to the timeline. Because no matter what they do, people are still going to buy it, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone was excited for Zelda regardless of where it fit in the timeline. And leaving that gap gives so much room for people to have more conversation about it, more YouTube videos about it, more this. So in a way, it's kind of promoting them in a way, you know, because it leaves that space for everyone to keep talking about it.
Yeah, and if you look at Majora's Mask, the one thing a lot of people still, like the reason everyone still talks about it more than the other games is because of all of the mystery.
Yeah.
That's true.
So
yeah, and they've been very upfront. Nintendo has always said like, gameplay first. Story is kind of an afterthought. That goes the same for so they're definitely not being coy, like Axel said. They're not being like, let's hide this from them. Let's hide this from the fans. They don't need to know, unless it's like stopping leaks or something, obviously. But
all right,
that's
pick
not
your
what we're
question,
about.
Daniel.
A question. Also, just a little shout out, Nintendo Prime in the chat, everybody.
Oh, nice.
Very excited to see Axel the beast. Yes. Let's see what questions. I'm just gonna choose one at random here. Uncool Mike, don't be so hard on yourself. Uncool Mike says, I love your videos. I just joined the Discord. Where do you guys do the podcast chats?
Here.
I would like to be live with you guys sometimes. I watch your videos every day unless I run through all your content. We do record it over Discord, and we stream it on the YouTube. So that's we actually are pretty open. We post on like Twitter and Discord and everything if we're looking for guests. So you just gotta be in the right place at the right time, Uncool Mike.
Well, it was very weird today because I messaged a lot of people trying to get last minute guests. Now we have 3.
Now we get
That's be available when I ask, and if you have lots of Zelda knowledge, a decent camera, and a good microphone, that is all of the requirements.
Also, speaking of Discord, Nintendo Prime, thanks Nate, just plugged our stream on his Discord server.
Oh.
So, what a good guy. Jeez.
Yeah. It's almost as like
that,
we're pals with this person.
Almost.
Speaking of that, someone in my chat's asking, Nintendo Prime, what's that?
Nintendo Prime is a website run by the former editor-in-chief of Zelda, but now he's not restricted to just Zelda. He talks all things Nintendo.
Yeah.
I sometimes, occasionally, rarely post a video on there as well that I make for him. But yeah, no, Nate's a good friend of ours as well that we all met. I met Jesse kind of through him, through Zelda Informer, and
it's almost as if when Mossy's bought Zelda Informer, he let go of a lot of people, and then they had to start their own YouTube or websites.
But he's gained a good following in doing so. So he does some very good work. He posts like almost daily, if not multiple times a day on his channel on YouTube.
He's
as well.
YouTube Nintendo Prime. Subscribe to him on YouTube.
Oh yeah, he does. There's a website too, but the YouTube is where it's really active. That's the place to be if you're following him. So
yeah,
there we go. We got meta questions.
All right, so
questions about asking.
We have all done one question each. So now everyone in the live stream chat, queue up your questions and we will pick from them. Ilya was here earlier, so I'm going to start with hers. She asked a question that I hope I put in here. I did not.
Uh-oh.